Hi there everyone, Josiah here with Womprat Creations, and the name of this week's scratch build is Dust Collection. I would say Dust Extermination, but unfortunately that is not really a reality. You're always going to have some kind of dust in a workshop, really no matter what you do. Most making produces dust, and I hate dust. Dust can be a pain in the butt when it comes to painting. Just being able to breathe in the shop, it's not good. You don't want a bunch of, the main dust that I deal with is wood dust, and it's not good. It's not healthy to be breathing that in all the time. I don't like having it over everything. So today I am going to be tackling a dust collection build. And for those of you who are do-it-yourself enthusiasts, you'll probably, this will be fairly familiar to you. This is a fairly standard solution. I'm going to be using my shop-vac, and I'm going to have a solution to separate a lot of the dust to prevent it from going to the shop vac and hopefully into this bucket. But before we get into the whole thing, I wanted to break down some of the pieces that are a little niche for this build, stuff that you might not recognize right away. I mean, everyone knows what a bucket is, but these really cool things are blast doors. They have a little door that you can slide open and then slide closed so that this hole in the center can be open and closed. And this allows you to direct the suction from the vacuum to different outputs. These, I mean, they look like they're probably some kind of vacuum formed, maybe ABS plastic. But I mean, they're a pretty basic construction. You can get these in metal too, but I went with the plastic ones. They should work fine. But I have a couple of these blast doors. I have a couple of these hose clamps. These are the right diameter for the hose that I have. I didn't bring the hose over here because it's really just a vacuum hose, but you guys will see it in a little bit. But I have a bunch of these to be able to attach the hose to whatever I need to. This thing I'm really excited about. This is probably what I am most excited about in this entire setup right here, because this was kind of hard to find. This is a coupler, essentially, and pipe couplers are not hard to come by, but this one was hard to find because my main producer of dust is my table saw. And on the bottom of my table saw, I have it has a spot for you to hook up dust collection, but the diameter is a 4-inch diameter for the hole on the bottom of my table saw. And when you search dust collection 4-inch to, I mean, a lot of dust collection systems run off of a 4-inch diameter hose, but a lot of the tools that I use don't require a 4-inch diameter hose. So I went with a 2.5, but that means that I needed to be able to find some kind of adapter to go from my table saw that has a 4-inch diameter and my 2.5-inch diameter hose. And I finally found this. You have to be careful because a lot of the ones that will come up, 4-inch to 2.5-inch adapter, there's an internal diameter and an outer diameter. And so the interior diameter is what you want to be looking at. Most of the 4-inch to 2.5-inch adapters that you're going to find, for whatever reason, are 4 inches in diameter on the outside, which means that if you're trying to hook this up to something that also has a 4-inch diameter plug-in, they're not gonna go. You're gonna have to put something over it to connect them, and I didn't want to mess with that. So this is a PowerTech threaded quick coupler, 4-inch by 2.5-inch. If you can find this, I've already plugged this onto my table saw to make sure that this works. this is going to work beautifully. I'm really glad that I found it, and I'm glad that someone thought of the problem with, you know, having two things that you're trying to plug into each other be the same exact size. It's not going to work. So this brand, PowerTech, it fits over the 4-inch diameter output on my table saw, so this is going to work beautifully. Hopefully I didn't lose you guys on that. The other thing that I got that's kind of a little different, and it's upside down right now, but there's a bunch of stuff inside. I'm not trying to let it fall out, but this is what is going to separate my dust into the bucket rather than into my shop vac. Why? Because it just makes it easier to empty it out. I don't have to worry about the bags, and it'll help my shop vac continue to run smoothly without a lot of maintenance. So essentially it has these two outputs. It has this one right here, and then one at the very top. This one at the top is going to go to the actual the vacuum, and then all of my other hoses coming from my different tools are going to plug into this one right here. Like I said, a lot of this is going to make much more sense once I get into it, but I wanted to outline a few things for you guys first. The only other thing that's really kind of not standard, I mean, this is fairly standard. This is a Y connector for, I'm going with 2-inch diameter pipe. And this is just a Y coupling. And what this allows you to do is connect 2 hoses here and then have a third one here, which will more than likely be, in most cases, the actual vacuum hose. But the reason I didn't go with the T couplers is because, or the T connectors, is because that hard turn is not great for keeping your airflow. And the name of the game in this is keeping your airflow as strong as it can be for as long as you can to all of your different tools. So that's why I went with the Y connectors. It's just more of a gentle angle rather than a hard 90-degree turn for that air. Hopefully it will help improve the airflow a little bit. But now I need to do some thinking, because the main things that I want to get done with this build, and I'm going to allow myself some room to grow with this power system, which is what I like to do with most of my builds. I don't want to limit myself. I want to be able to give myself some wiggle room. So I think the things that I know I want to get hooked up today are my table saw, oh man, what is it called? Well, a sweeping receptacle that I'll be able to, when I sweep the shop floor, I want to be able to sweep it into a little container that'll be hooked up to this system and just suck everything up off the ground. So that's the second thing that I want to include in this. And then I also want to have a spare hose that I can move from my drill press, which will have a kind of a blast gate on it, and then I'm looking right at it, my sanding cart. So my sanding cart and drill press, that'll be one connection, table saw, that'll be 2, and then the sweeping floor receptacle, that'll be 3, which is, I have 3 blast gates, so that should work out fine. But I'm going to leave myself some connections for later on, for when I get other tools. I'll be able to hook them up to those other connections. So I feel like that's enough of an explanation. Let's get into the build. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do in this build is put together this dust separator. And this is just a normal bucket from Home Depot. I need to cut out a hole, a 3-inch hole, just to accommodate the bottom of this plastic tube, essentially. This cyclone, I think they call it. I need to cut a 3-inch hole in the center of this so that I can bolt this into the top. For that, I am just going to use my calipers, and actually those are set to 3 inches. I want to set them to 1.5 because I'm going to be going from the center out. And this doesn't need to be perfect, but I definitely want it to be relatively close. And I'm sure I've talked to you guys about this before, but this method I'm using of using the ends of my calipers to score a line along the where I'm going to be cutting is, I mean, if you're using really thin styrene, you can actually cut through with this, but for this, for most things, I just use that method to kind of mark where I need, and then I'll go in with something else. So I think I'm just going to use my X-Acto blade to cut this circle out. All right, got that out, and that fits. Awesome. All right, so the bottom ring on this has 4 holes in it for bolts that I'm going to use to secure this to the top of the or the lid of the bucket, and so I need to mark those holes, figure out what size they are, and then drill them out so I can start putting that all together. All right, and I know some people like to put down a bead of caulk in between the bucket lid and the cyclone, but mine came with this little foam gasket that I can put in between there, and this should work fine. I'm not too worried about it. So I'll line those holes up. Line this up with that. I want all of these to be pretty tight so that it'll actually push down on this foam gasket that it has and help seal it in. That being said, it doesn't need to be, you know, I'm not securing a mechanical component, so this isn't going to be, these aren't mission critical joints, so I'm not gonna do anything more than just give it a good hand tight. That should be good. Yeah, that should be good. All right, this has been attached. Lives on the bucket like so. Now I think I'm gonna go ahead and construct the section that will connect all of the different tools that this system is going to be hooked up to together into one line. And I'm going to be using my 2-inch piping and all the different joints and connectors that I got, also from Home Depot. All right, so for this, I'm going to have my Y connectors, and I have 4 at the moment. I could always take this apart because, like I said, I'm gonna have 3 tools that I'm gonna hook up to this now. I wanted to leave myself some room to grow, and ideally, I was thinking about having 2 more 2 more, so a total of 5. But for some reason I only picked up 4. So I could always add another portion later. It's just going to be a little more involved than I was wanting it to be. But that's okay. Right now, what I need to do before I can actually start putting things together is I need to cut this section of pipe down into small sections that'll go in between these. And I actually need to figure out how far apart I want these to be. I mean, I don't need a whole lot of clearance. Oh, you know what? I'm actually forgetting a component. Okay. This was almost really bad. I almost didn't incorporate a portion into this that needs to be. So, because on these Y connectors, there's not a lot of room right in here for me to kind of be able to fiddle with that. I picked up a couple of these 45-degree connectors so that it'll actually be like this. And then this just I have a whole bunch of room right here. So this is what needs to be on there so that I can use that to help me decide how far apart I want these to be from each other. And that is actually probably more than enough room right there. Yeah, I don't need a ton of room. I just need to be able to, yeah, so that should be okay. All right, so I'm going to cut, here it is. 0.83. Why would that be such a weird number? I like when things are nice round numbers. When they're not, it just makes my job harder. I have to think. I'll just make a bunch of sections of, we'll just say 1.5. Because, yeah, we'll just say a bunch of sections of 1.5. Nice round numbers. That's what I like. So 1.5. All right. There's 1, 2, 3. My 2 end pieces are done. Now, all of this, by the way, even though this isn't technically dust, this is still going to be improved by this build, in that when I brush everything down onto the floor and I sweep it up at the end of the day, I will have my my little thing. I need to remember what that's called, but my little thing that sits on the ground that I'll be able to sweep everything into and it'll suck it all up. This will also be a part of that. Okay, so for this construction, the reason that I'm taking these apart, even though I just put them together in the right configuration, is I want to make the majority of this as permanent as you can get with, these are actually ABS, not PVC. Doesn't really matter. But the reason that, well, I want most of this to be a permanent fitting with each other, but I'm going to leave the ends not permanent because, like I said, I want to give myself the option being able to add to this later. So for the parts that are going, I want to be relatively permanent. I have this all-purpose cement. This works for both PVC and ABS, as well as CPVC. C. I'm not sure what that one is, but I'm assuming it's some kind of subdivision of PVC. But anyways, make sure that whatever kind of cement you're getting, it works for the kind of pipe that you're using. But this one will work for mine, and so I'm gonna start putting all these together. Okay, so the way that I'm thinking about this is airflow. Airflow is the name of the game in this. So, path of least resistance. If I had my vacuum coming from this side, that's not going with these angles of the Y pieces. So I'm going to have my vacuum coming in from this side so that it can just aid the airflow going through this whole system. I put an end cap on this side, but I didn't glue this down so that later on if I want to add something, I can just take this off and then add another one of these Y joints on there. This one is going to be, I am actually going to throw this in there, but this is going to connect to a vacuum hose that will connect down to the whole system. So this, while the cement that I use to join all these together will help with the airtight aspect of this, I want to help it a little bit, so I'm actually going to use, if I can, oh, right here. I'm going to use some rubberized electrical tape around all the joints just to further seal it. It should be fine the way it is, but I just want to make sure. All right. So I have my, we'll call it a hub station, totally put together. It is hopefully, doesn't need to be exactly airtight, but hopefully it's airtight enough. Now, what's the next step in this operation? I think what the next step in this operation is test fitting this, because this is going to be bracketed to the wall right above where the shop vac and dust separator is. And I think I want the blast gates to connect right to these. So if this is mounted on the wall, I want to be able to open and close the blast gates right here instead of at the respective tool. So I need to make sure that I have enough clearance. Well, can I do it like this? I can open and close it like that. Yeah, okay. So then, what I'm going to do is, this is still going to be mounted to the wall, but instead of, like if my workbench is my wall, instead of being mounted like this and having to worry, actually, hang on. All right, so here's my blast doors. Instead of having to worry about having, mounting this far enough away from the wall to have clearance for my blast gates, I'm going to have it up like this to where it's perpendicular from the wall, so that I don't need to worry about the I don't need to worry about the clearance from the wall. Wow, that was difficult. Okay, so next thing is to attach the blast gates to this and then attach this to the wall. And this, I'm finding out, doesn't match up with those, which is fine. I just need to put something in between the two. All right, guys, I made another trip to Home Depot and I solved the problem, but I did it off camera. But I'm sorry. It's okay though. I'm going to walk you through it. It's so the issue that I was having is my inputs on the blast gates were the same diameter as the pipe fittings that I was using. So what I did was I got some of these rubber, flexible, adjustable couplings, and so I was able to fit it over both ends and then tighten them down with the tightening bands on both ends of the coupling. So all of these are pretty tight, and because they're rubber and I tightened them down pretty tightly, they should be pretty airtight. So now, oh, and I also rethought my position on this thing's eventual position on the wall. I told you guys earlier that I was thinking about doing it like this, but I think I'm back to this now. These are going to be pointing down towards the ground, which is fine. And I'll tell you guys why I changed my mind about that in a second. But now I think we are at the point where I can mount this to the, well, no, we're not at the point that we can mount this to the wall yet. Actually, what I need to do now is I need to construct the portion that's going to go down to the floor that I can sweep stuff into. And that's actually the reason I'm going to have this pointing down. I was thinking earlier about how I was going to do that, and I think this is going to be the best way to do it. So the reason I'm going to have this pointing down now is because this section, this right here is going to be up against the wall in the corner. And so this is going to come down into the corner of the floor, and I'll have a triangular section of wood that I can sweep stuff into the corner. That just makes sense to me. There's less corners for things to get stuck in as opposed to like a rectangular box. I'm going to have a triangular corner piece, and so that's why I'm going to have this pointing down. That way I can just have a straight pipe down to the wooden section on the bottom. So I need to make that section so that I can mount this to the wall, because I don't want to have to worry about measuring out how far this is from the ground, so I know how long to make the connection to this from the ground. So I'm just going to put the connector on here and put everything in its final position, and I'll just mount this on the wall wherever that is. So for that, I need to connect a section of pipe to this, and then I need to construct the actual bottom portion that's going to go into the corner. So let's go to a time lapse. All right, you guys, I am finished, and I know it's not the most pretty dust collection setup there is out there, and it's kind of in a tight spot over here, so I can't really get a good angle to where you guys can see all of it and me so I can walk you through it, but it works. I've tested the table saw, I've tested the floor suction, and those both work great. And there's not really a good way for me to show you that with where it is in the shop. It kind of needed to be up out of the way, and so it's kind of scrunched over here in this little corner area. So yeah, it's not great for camera angles, but it's going to serve its purpose very well. To show you guys that the suction is still pretty good, I am going to turn it on so that you can see that this extension that I'm going to use for the drill press and the sanding station works well. So let me turn it on real quick. It works. It works very well. I'm very pleased with the amount of suction that I'm getting out of all of the different attachments, and my blast gates are easy to operate and close which one needs to go where. I am going to get just a white pen and label these, because right now it's easy to keep track of, but as this expands, I don't want to have to follow a line to whatever tool to make sure I'm opening the right one. I'm just going to label them. But I'm going to call this as a success. I know that this isn't one of my typical build videos, but hopefully you guys got something from it. It was desperately needed in this shop, and I am very pleased that I have a solution, not a all-encompassing solution, but the start of a great solution to my dust problem here in the shop. So thank you guys for tuning in for another scratch build. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Hey, if you enjoyed that video, consider checking us out on Patreon. Patreon is a great way to help support the channel directly, and it allows us to give you some cool stuff in return, like free 3D models of all of the shop infrastructure builds that I do. You can get free merch and a whole bunch of other really cool stuff. So go check it out. Thanks, guys.
517 to scanner control. 517 to scanner control. 316, report to control. 53 to upper bay door. 53 to upper bay door.